When you're editing, you may find that your videos do not play back very smoothly. There'll be skips, there'll be jumps. When you're scrubbing across the timeline, it's not going to be very smooth sometimes. And there's a variety of reasons for that, from your computer not being strong enough to handle the files that are being thrown at it, to other things being open in the background. So you close the web browser, close Spotify, close whatever else you might have open. Um, but there is one technical thing that we can do looking at the file type and what type of video it is that can make your life a little bit easier and make your playback a bit smoother, and that is to use proxy files. Now, proxy files are either larger or smaller, depending. They're usually referred to as smaller files, but they can sometimes be larger. But even if they're larger, they will be easier for the computer to play. Let me explain. So our phones and action cameras, for example, they don't have like really super high amounts of computing power in them compared to like an FX30 or um, that kind of camera designed for video. So it kind of has to make do with what it's got, and they do it really well. But in order to store a 4K image that's really nice looking, they actually throw away video data and they encode it as changes from moment to moment. So you have one frame of a complete image, and then a list of changes from that image for the next half a second. Then another complete image, then a list of changes, then another complete image, um, which is great. It makes a video that's very small, and our eyes don't normally pick up the difference when we're viewing it. It looks great, but the computer has to show you one frame and then calculate each additional frame for the next half a minute. Then it has a reference frame, and then it'll calculate each of the changes from moment to moment, frame to frame, and then show you those images. It has to do a lot of processing to show you that image in real time. So we're going to use proxy files to get over that. And we have one video here that is a 6K file from a Blackmagic camera. And that might be too difficult for the computer to play back. So we're going to make something smaller and easier to play back. So here are the files we have. This is shot with an FX30. You can see that it's 29.97 frames, 4K, and about a minute and a half. That file I happen to know is 1.5 gigabytes. This is shot with my phone, the Samsung S23 Ultra. This is shot in 60 frames, because I tend to default to shooting 60 on my B-roll shots. I just forgot to change it to 30. It's also 4K, and you can see here that it's also 10-bit, same as the FX30. Now, here is the B-RAW, the Blackmagic RAW file, shot on a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K Pro. It is 6K, also 29.97, and you can see here that it is 16-bit color, which is more than 10. We'll just leave it at that. And this is a almost 15-minute file, and I happen to know it's 70 gigabytes. So it's considerably bigger, not just longer, but per minute, it's larger than the other files. We're going to make proxies out of this. First, we have to tell the computer which proxies to make and where to put them. So we go into our project settings, and in master settings, if you scroll down a little, you'll get to optimize media, render cache, and then working folders. These are the two sections we want to look at. For the moment, we just want to look at proxy media format. We're going to change this. There's a variety of settings here, but H.264 and H.265 are the codecs that have problems. They're very small, so if you need to take a project with you and your computer can handle it, that's the great way to do it. But what I'm going to do is ProRes 422 proxy. So 422 means it's going to have better color than most, and proxy means it's going to be lighter weight. So let's have a look at that. And then down here, proxy generation location, it's going to go into assets and proxy media. So once we know where it's going to go, we're going to take the files and proxy media, generate proxy media. And then it will think about it for a bit and do its thing. After a little while, it'll be done. It can take a while depending on what system you have. Now, my system is usually pretty beefy for a laptop. But what I've done is I've disabled the discrete GPU. So I'm actually using a low power integrated GPU just to accentuate the differences between these files. If you have a beefy machine, it can play back anything. So we're making believe that we're on a machine that's not quite as good, or we're also making believe that we're playing a lot more files. So that'll exaggerate the difference. But there is still a difference, you'll see. So here we have, let's start with the big video. This will kind of set our palette for this. So what we're going to do is, oh, I have that set up. We're going to go ahead and play the video. And while it's playing, we're going to go look at our task manager here in the performance section and look and see that it's taking 41% of the GPU. And you can see how much memory is being used and how much of the CPU is being used. You can see right there where we started dealing with this 16-bit BRAW footage. So about 40% and about 30% on the CPU. And this is one stream of 6K video. We'll go back here, and up here is a little setting where you can tell it, hey, I'd rather use the proxy files. And you see these icons change to this little proxy icon. So you know that we're looking at the proxy files. Let's go ahead and go back into our BRAW file. And now we're not looking at the BRAW anymore. We're looking at the proxy file. We'll go ahead and press play on that. And over here, our CPU usage is down to 22. And our GPU usage is down to 18. So you can see that the proxy file is much, much easier for the computer to show you in real time than the BRAW file. Now the FX30 is probably the second biggest file. It's certainly the best image quality. So we're going to go back to our camera originals and go ahead and press play on that and have a look. Oh my goodness. The CPU spiked up and then it settled down at around 26%. And our GPU, all right, this is a lot easier on the GPU than the BRAW. It's rolling around there at 21%. Now there's other background stuff going on here too, but that's not changed between these different files. So it's about the same load. So 20% on the GPU. Now we'll switch that back to Proxies. Give ourselves a little playing room here and have a look at that. You can see the CPU is considerably lower. And the GPU is a little lower, not as dramatic a difference, for sure. But it's coasting along at 15, 17%, and it was at 20%. But the GPU there is dramatically lower at 16, 17%, a little bit of a variation there. Now, the phone video is the smallest file size, so you would think that it's the least amount of data that the computer has to deal with, but it's also the most compressed, more than likely. So let's have a look at that. This is the original phone file, and our CPU usage is a modest, 20%. That's pretty low, actually. See, the memory use went up a bit, and our GPU is 26, 27. I saw it go up to 28 time or two. So CPU is 20, 22, and the GPU is 25, 26, 27, 28. Let's go back and switch this to our proxies. We'll go over the same part of the video, play that, and the CPU usage is actually a little bit higher at 25%, and the GPU usage is a little bit lower, trending between 23 and 25. So it's a little bit of a trade-off there. So depending on your system, you can choose which one is going to work best. Now, there are some issues with proxies. Obviously, they're not the original files. They don't have the original colors, so you tend not to do color correction on the proxies. You would switch to the originals to do that. But other than that, it's a great little tool to have in your workflow, especially if your computer doesn't seem to be up to snuff to play back your files in real time. Give it a try. Thanks for coming along. See you next time.